Why miso cod is always better at restaurants. In this one, I want to dive in, how do I get this beautiful color on the fish? What type of fish do I use for this? We're gonna go over all these questions today. Why do I use a strainer when rinsing my rice? See, this is a very common question I get because of the rising trend of people hating on strainers with washing rice. This is a very common thing in restaurants. I was even taught this by one of my chefs who's from Hong Kong, one from Japan, because it's so much quicker, so much easier, and so much more efficient than rinsing in the pot itself. And then also a good common rule of thumb, or I should probably say pinky. I've learned to fill it up to the first line of my pinky, and that's the perfect way to measure.
Nobu's similar to our miso marinated black cod, well, Patagonian toothfish in this case. Sweet, savoury, fatty, what's not to like about that?
Okay, I'm assuming he's just going off of Nobu's recipe here, but I don't see any of the sake leaves or any of the sake in it. So it's just straight up miso. It's just a different thing, I guess. It's just taken away, which to me is a disappointment because this is just gonna be all sweet. No like actual umami is in this. And that's what I want. That's the whole point of the recipe. That sake leaves, that traditional sake leaves that's in there gives it the umami. Now this right here is sake leaves. You can usually find this in the fish section of your store. Here at my store, you can find Kasuzuke black cod already pre-marinated and ready to go. Now this recipe is very disappointing to me, and the reason is all the iterations I've been seeing that are popular on social media, such as the Trader Joe's miso cod and Nobu miso cod. Look, I'm not a traditionalist in any sense, like I do things that are not traditional, but in this sense, I don't like that something has been popularized when it's not that something that I crave, and that is Kasuzuke cod. So you might know it as miso cod, but it's just things stripped away to make it that miso cod. So Kasuzuke cod is based on, of course, white miso, which gives it that nice sweetness. Mirin, to provide some acidity, also adds some sweetness. So you're getting the trend here. We've got sweet plus more sweet. Then sake. The addition of sugar, in this case for me, maple syrup. Once again, I've told you, I'm not a traditionalist, but same concept, sugar. Here's the main reason why these recipes are disappointing to me. They're lacking the main component, and that is this stuff right here. This is called sake leaves. This is the sediment that's left over from creating sake, and this is packed with umami. This makes up the majority of the recipe. Also, tiny spatulas are pretty freaking cool. I like these. And also, you're gonna find really good marinated cod at the fish butcheries because they have it on hand, and most of them have really good recipes. So I would give theirs a try if you happen to be at a really good Japanese grocery store or butchery. Give their recipe a try. Just like mine today is purely based off of a local store in Seattle called Uwajimaya. Now, why am I using black cod for this recipe, and why is it typically used for this recipe? One of the big reasons is because the black cod has a very mild flavor. Again, it's traditional, and then it also has a much flakier texture. So it's gonna absorb it and it's gonna be much flakier as opposed to other fish that could be kind of weird textures when they absorb a marinade. And look, let me tell you, the reason why I fell in love with this marinated fish is because it's gonna make this fish so much more like buttery and rich. It's just super, super rich. And if you do want to take all of the air out of the bag, here's a neat little trick that I've shown you. You take the bag, you dunk it into some water. Of course, this water is pretty cold. And then I'm gonna just go all the way up to the top to the air. Gets completely removed, and then give it a little zip. And then there we go. It's completely aired out, so that marinade is gonna completely like penetrate this fish. And also, I wouldn't be opposed to it if you do wanna end up circulating it in a warm water bath, sous vide, 145 degrees Fahrenheit. That would be good too, and then roasting it off. Now, why does the fish get marinated overnight? What's the reason for having it in the marinade so long? Well, obvious reason number one is so it can penetrate the fish long enough so it gets that flavor through and all that umami. But another reason is called moisture retention. See, when we let it sit long enough in this, it's gonna help so that the fish doesn't dry out when we cook it. It's gonna help retain that moisture so it's not all dried out, because we do want to cook this at a very high heat so we can caramelize the sugars without overcooking the inside and making it all weird. Now, how do you cook this fish? This famous fish, how do I cook this off to perfection? How do I get that crispy, nice char and beautiful color without being overcooked? Do I put it in a pan? One reason why the fish is always better at restaurants is it goes in the oven. Should probably get you guys out of here. Now, the reason for it going into the oven versus a pan, I know I've said in the past, like, it's better at restaurants when you cook in a pan on high heat. Marinated fish like this, best in an oven because you're getting that even cook. You're gonna get longer time to caramelize the sugars in the fish. I can get a nice even heat from the top as well without it getting all weird and soggy on the inside. It can be like quite mealy if you overcook it. We need to get these sugars caramelized from the marinade so we can get that nice like char effect of the Kasuzuke cod. So that's why it goes in the oven. And also it's very hands-off. This is super easy. I've got my oven set to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going in there until I have a nice char. The fish has reached an internal temp of 145 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can just pretty much tell when it starts to flake apart and it's nice and charred. You'll know. Now, I still remember the place that blew my mind with this fish. And fortunately, he's local to where I'm at in Seattle, Chef Shiro. So Chef Shiro trained under sushi chef master Chef Jiro with a J, not to be confused with SH, in Japan. And he's been open in Seattle since the 70s, but his Kasuzuke cod is just insane. And if you are in town, I recommend you go check it out. The Rainier Omakase is the meal. And when I first had it, I was just blown away. And I've always been in love with this dish. No trendy like influencer bullshit going on at this place. Like, it's just straight up delicious fish. Looks good. That's a pretty fish. I love the skin on it too. The skin's so good for you. It's good for your hair.